Hi, I'm Jane, founder of Beyond the Empty Nest, Rediscover You. So welcome everybody. Welcome to new members of the group today. That's really nice to see new people. So today I'd like to discuss what it is that we do when we go along with what other people want to do. Is that something that you do? Do you go along with what other people want just to keep the peace? Do you do that quite often? Do you find it hard to speak up for yourself? Do you find it quite difficult to ask for what you need? And what does that do? What does that do to us? And it might be that, from being quite small, we've kind of picked up that habit. We've got that message that, we can't ask for what we want and that it's better just to be quiet. Maybe our role as women, with that society's norms, that's what women do. They keep the peace, they keep quiet. Maybe you don't like confrontation or negative vibes. I mean, who does? That's understandable. Maybe we don't want to upset other people. Maybe we feel guilty about expressing what we really think. Maybe others have, sent us on a guilt trip about that. And often it can be small things. It can be small things that we go along with, that we think, it doesn't matter. So it could be your choice of food. What food you eat? What food are you going to eat tonight? You're with friends or family. What restaurant do you want to go to? What do you want to watch on TV? Where do you want to go on holiday? When you're with a group of friends, what's the topic of conversation? Do you just go along with what everyone else wants to talk about? Not feeling that you can speak up and say, well, actually, I'd like to talk about this, or just stop talking about whatever it is you want to talk about. Maybe it's lifestyle choices. It can be small things, it can be big things, but often it kind of starts with small things. And just as an example for myself, in our house we have this television, and it angles. You can move it, you can angle it. Now, depending on where you're sat, the television can be angled at different ways so that you can see it better. And I'm not that bothered. And to be fair, I don't watch a great deal of television, but so people who sit in one part of the room have the television angled towards them. And we were sat, and my family, and somebody said, well, is the TV okay for you? And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's angled slightly away from me. I thought, it's fine, I can see it well enough, it's not a problem. And my son at the time, this was 2 years ago, he said, Mom, he said, hi Jan, nice to see you. He said, Mom, you really need to speak up for yourself. I'm just talking about the television, Jan, not being angled in the right way, and how we can sometimes not ask for what we want, even if it's small things like what we eat for tea, or if the television's angled towards you. And I thought, wow, he picked up on that I was like, it's fine, I don't mind if the television's angled slightly away from me. It's not a problem. And he was like, no, it is, Mum. You need to speak up and ask for what you want. And I thought, wow, gosh, and it's true though, isn't it? Because when you've gone along with other people to keep the peace, when you've gone along with what other people want and you've not spoken up for yourself, how does that feel afterwards? How do you feel? How do you feel? And what is the message that you're giving to yourself? What is that message that you're telling yourself? You're saying, I don't matter. I'm not important. Other people's needs are more important than mine. My needs are bottom of the pile. This is what you're saying to yourself. And wouldn't you be horrified if someone else said that to you? Wouldn't you be horrified if someone else said to you, you don't matter, you know, your needs are bottom of the pile? Yeah, so thanks, Jan. Absolutely, good for you. Um, and, you know, but the worst thing is when we do that, we're telling ourselves that every time. We're telling ourselves that we don't matter. We're bottom of the pile. And the worst thing is, we believe that. If we're constantly telling ourselves that, you know, we believe that. And it makes us feel powerless, invisible. It's humiliating. And our image of ourselves erodes. We're eroding our self-image every time we say that to ourselves. And we might not be consciously saying that, but that's the message that we're getting. So do you feel sometimes that when that happens, you feel like it's stuck in your throat? We often say, don't we, it's kind of things get stuck in our throat. Because the throat is the link between your head and your heart. And your heart knows the truth. Your heart always knows the truth. And somewhere you know that too. So your heart is always holding that truth for you. It always knows that truth, despite what your head says, because what your head says is probably made up of messages that we've picked up along our trail as children, in our society. What are the norms for women? The head's picked that up. The heart, it knows the truth. It knows who we are. It knows we're amazing beings who matter, who are important. It knows that. But there's a kind of a bit of a battle going on, and it gets stuck here. It gets stuck in your throat, and the words get stuck. I've had that before, you know, when I was, and some of you know that I have had really quite bad depression in the past. And I remember clearly sitting with a group of people, and they were all talking, and I felt I couldn't speak. And even if I'd have had to speak to say something like, oh my God, the room's on fire, I felt I just couldn't. It was stuck. And that was the ultimate in that feeling of that battle between the head and the heart. My heart knew, my head was somewhere completely different. And you know, sometimes I think we can be ashamed of our feelings. Maybe they're bigger, there's bigger things going on, and we're ashamed of how we feel. We think, my God, if anybody knew how I really felt, they would think how awful I am. But actually, you know, our feelings are often irrational. They're not rational. And they're okay, they're our feelings. And the chances are that you're not alone, that other people have felt those feelings. So sometimes, you know, finding a space that's safe where you can express those feelings can be so healing. And I was listening to Mel Robbins. I don't know if anyone has seen her on YouTube. She's very forthright. And she was talking about how we say we're fine when we're not. We go, yeah, I'm fine. And actually we're not. And what's happening is we're covering up our feelings. You know, she said, it makes me so angry when people say they're fine. If you're crappy, say you're crappy. If you're amazing, say you're amazing. But don't say, I'm fine. Because again, you're covering up. And the problem is, again, that we convince ourselves that we're fine when we're not. Because that's easier than facing our issues, our challenges, and easier than dealing with them. But when we convince ourselves that we're fine, what are we doing? We're settling for something that's less than fine. We're settling for something that's not who we are, but we're settling. We're settling for that. And that's not living. You know, it becomes a habit, it becomes chronic. It's not living fully. And then we don't go after what we want because it's too difficult, because we've convinced ourselves that we're fine, but actually we're not. And how does that feel when you do that? You know, what does life feel like for you when you do that? You know, I made a decision when I was very little, very early on. I made this decision that I wasn't worth loving, and that it was easier to stay quiet and be invisible. Life was easier, it was calmer. I made that decision based on my circumstances. And it wasn't really anything that anybody had told me. It was just kind of life had happened, and that was the conclusion as a small child that I'd come to. Well, you know what, I'm not really worth loving, and it's not worth speaking up because no one's going to listen. It's just easier to keep quiet. And it kind of worked for a little while until, you know, I left home for the first time, and I became crippled with anxiety and depression. And the reason for that was because I had made that decision when I was small. But I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't know what was going on. Why am I feeling like this? Where is this anxiety come from? What is this depression about? I didn't know. That was the reason. And it took time, it took guidance. I had some amazing mentors. It took working with every aspect of me. It took working with my body, my mind, my emotions, my spirit, who I truly was, who I truly am. And when we work with all of that and we can see who we truly are, that's when we can move beyond that place. And it wasn't easy. And it's still a process. I can never say, I don't think any of us can say, well, I'm there, you know. And Janet is great. You know, I love the fact that you say that you're not doing that anymore. You're not pleasing other people. You found that way out. But you find it is still a process. We're still learning. We're still moving and developing. So, you know, I learned how to do that for myself. And then it inspired me, and I wanted to learn to do that for others. So there might be other people out there who are still struggling with this, you know, and I want to help you because I know I can help. And that's what I was inspired to do that, because I've been there. And, you know, transition times, they're the times when things come up. This transition time that a lot of us are in, where we're moving into our 50s, our 60s. You know, the fact is that we've lived more life than we have left. And I know that's maybe not nice to face, but it's true. So actually, every second counts. It's really important to make the most of our lives now and ask ourselves, what do we want? What do we want to do with our lives? Now, we've got this time. What do we want to do with it? You know, do we want to live fully? Do we want to put ourselves top of the pile? Or do we want to say, I'm fine, when we're not? Do we want to put ourselves bottom of the pile and not speak up? And even if it's in little ways where we go along with other people, you know, eroding our sense of who we are. So if you're sick and tired of putting yourself bottom, if you're sick and tired of telling yourself effectively that you're not important, that you don't matter, if you're sick and tired of feeling invisible, if you're sick and tired of not living a full life, then message me. You can click on my picture on any of the posts. It'll take you through to my personal page. Send me a message. We can arrange a phone call. We can talk about how I can help you. And I can help you like I've helped my other clients. I can get you results. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Jan, have a wonderful day. And sending you lots of love. Thank you.